Hello Magic Makers, welcome to Storytime with Mombierella. This is a young adult fiction and may be inappropriate for some younger viewers.
The Beast Within, A Tale of Beauty's Prince by Serena Valentino. Copyright Disney Enterprises Incorporated, 2014. Chapter 13. The Bounder. The entire household was in a panic. Cogsworth was nowhere to be found, and now it seemed Mrs. Potts was also missing. But Nanny, it doesn't make sense. You were just having tea with her. Where in the world would she have gone off to? Nanny's eyes were red from crying. I don't know. I went to fetch us more hot water for the tea. That Mrs. Potts is always bustling about, and I just wanted her to sit still for a bit. You know that woman can't just sit down to enjoy a nice cup of tea without getting this or that for one person or another. But wouldn't you know it, once I returned with the water, she was gone. And the strangest thing, sitting there on the table was a pretty little teapot as round as can be. Tulip was confused. Nanny, you were having tea. I don't understand why a pot upon the table would be so strange. Nanny said, You see, I had the teapot we were using, didn't I? To get the water. So why was there another just sitting on the table? That is strange, I suppose. Nanny's face crinkled up. It's more than strange, girl. Something is happening in this house. Something sinister. I felt it the first time we arrived, and now it's getting stronger. Tulip wasn't going to let Nanny get her worked up with her superstitious nonsense. She'd done it far too often in the past, and she wouldn't allow herself to be swept away by it again. Not now. Oh, I know what you're thinking, girl. You think Nanny's an old, foolish woman. But I've been on this earth much longer than most, and I've seen things most people only dream of. Tulip rolled her eyes, but Nanny went on. I'm telling you, I think this place is cursed. Both ladies looked up from their conversation when they heard Lumiere clearing his throat at the room's threshold. I just want to let you know the doctor has left and the prince is resting comfortably. Will he be okay? Tulip asked, worried. Oh, yes, he will be fine. He's recovering and exhausted, that is all. I'm sure he will want to see you tomorrow, he said, smiling in an attempt to lighten the mood. Tomorrow? Not today? Tulip wondered. But she smiled back at Lumiere. She couldn't help it. There was something about him. You needn't fuss over us this evening for dinner, she said. You can just bring us something on a tray. We can eat in our rooms or perhaps next to the fire in the sitting room. I'm sure everyone is in a tizzy down there, with Mrs. Potts and Cogsworth missing. I don't want you to worry over us. Nanny looked pleased with the job she had done raising Tulip. She sounded not only like a real queen, but a very compassionate one at that. But the flirty little Frenchman wouldn't hear of serving guests on a tray in the sitting room or any other room aside from the dining hall. Oh, no! That will not do. If Mrs. Potts were here, she would blow her lid at the thought of you two eating off of trays. And as for our menu this evening, never fear, I have something special planned for you. He smiled another magical grin and said, The dressing gong will be at 6 o'clock. Dinner at 8 o'clock. See you then. Then he was gone, likely dashing his way down the stairs to arrange dinner and supervise the search for the missing servants. Tulip looked at her nanny coyly. You don't think the two of them snuck off together? Cogsworth and Mrs. Potts? You don't think they're in love? Nanny laughed. I wish it were as simple as that, my girl. But no, neither of them gave me the slightest notion there was something between them. No, I fear something dreadful has happened to them. Tulip rolled her eyes again. Stop with all the talk of curses, Nanny. I won't have it. Later that night in the main dining hall, you wouldn't have known two of the most important people on staff were missing. The room looked lovely, decorated with some of the hothouse flowers from Tulip's surprise earlier in the day, and the candles were sparkling brightly in crystal votive bowls, casting an unearthly light. The two ladies were enjoying their dessert when the prince stumbled into the room looking half crazed.
I'm happy you ladies are enjoying your meal, while the entire household is falling into shambles around you.
He looked terribly worn, as though he'd aged several years from the ordeal. Nanny and Tulip just stared at him, at a complete loss.
Have you nothing to say for yourself, Tulip? Sitting here stuffing yourself while my childhood companions are suffering such a terrible fate?
Nanny spoke first. Here now, I won't have you speaking to her like that. She's been worried sick over them and you. We both have. His face turned into something inhuman. something wicked and cruel. Nanny feared the prince was losing his mind.
Don't look at me like that, old woman. I won't have you casting evil looks at me, and you!
He turned his anger on Tulip.
You lying strumpet, playing with my emotions, pretending you love me, when clearly you do not.
Tulip gasped and melted into tears at once, hardly able to speak. That's not true. I do love you. The prince's face was ashen, his eyes sunken and dark with illness, his anger growing with every word.
If you loved me, truly loved me, then none of this would be happening. Mrs. Potts and Cogsworth would be here. The animals in the maze wouldn't have attacked me. And I wouldn't look like this. Look at me. Every day I grow uglier, more wretched.
Nanny put her arm around Tulip, who was crying so hard she couldn't breathe properly, let alone say anything in her defense. Though even if she had, he wouldn't have hurt her. His anger was growing completely out of control.
I can't stand the sight of you. I want you out of my castle this moment. Don't bother packing your things.
He rushed to the ladies, grasping Tulip by the hair and pulling her towards the door, knocking over Nanny in the process.
I won't have you in this castle another moment. Do you understand? You disgust me.
Tulip was weeping harder than ever, screaming for the prince to let her go so she could see to her Nanny, when Gaston came into the room.
What on earth is going on here, man?
He wrenched Tulip from the prince's clutches and helped Nanny to her feet.
What are you playing at, sir? Are you deranged?
Then turning his attention to the ladies, he said,
Go to your rooms, ladies. I will take care of this.
The ladies waited in their rooms with their bags hastily packed. They had no idea what to think of the entire matter. Clearly the prince was suffering from some sort of fever from his wounds and exhaustion. They sat in silence until Lumiere came into the room. His face looked grieved. Princess, I see you have packed your things. If you and Nanny could follow me, I will escort you to your carriage. He could see the numerous questions written on Tulip's face. We think it's best you go home to your mother and father. The prince will write you when he is feeling more like himself again. Nanny spoke. Yes, I think that is best. Come now, child. All will be well, I promise. And the ladies walked through the castle and into the courtyard to meet the carriage with as much dignity and composure as they could gather in light of their terrible ordeal.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you haven't had a chance to, please take a second, like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, comment down below, share with a friend, and check out some of the other Villain series chapters and books as well. Join us next time, and remember, let it go and keep moving forward. Have a magical day. Bye!